What would you do if 3 freezing donkeys showed up at your door in the middle of a storm, carrying something you could never imagine? Caleb Holt was the kind of man who lived with the weather, not against it. He had a small ranch on the edge of nowhere, where the roads disappeared into fields and the sky looked like it went on forever. He was used to cold nights, but this one felt different. The wind had a sharpness to it, like it was trying to cut through everything. He was inside, sitting by the fire, when the knocking came. Not a polite knock. More like a desperate thump. Caleb stood up, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. He opened the door and saw them. 3 donkeys stood on his porch, their coats covered in snow, their eyes tired and frightened. They were packed tight together, shivering so hard their bodies shook. Caleb could see their breath in the air, little clouds that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. He stepped outside without thinking. The cold hit him hard. He reached out, and one donkey leaned into his hand as if it recognized him. "What are you doing out here?" Caleb whispered, mostly to himself. The donkeys didn't answer. They just stood there, their heads low, as if they were waiting for something. Caleb moved to the side and saw the packs on their backs. They were old, worn, and wrapped in cloth. Not random bags. These were carefully tied, balanced, and protected. Someone had packed them with purpose. Someone had planned for them to be here. Caleb felt a strange chill in his stomach, different from the cold outside. He opened the door wider and stepped back. "Come on in," he said. The donkeys hesitated for a moment, then shuffled inside. Their hooves clacked on the floor. The sound felt wrong in his quiet home. He shut the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. He covered them with blankets and set out bowls of water and oats. They ate slowly, as if they didn't trust that food would last. Caleb watched them, trying to make sense of the situation. He had lived alone for years. His wife had left a long time ago, and his son had grown up and moved away. He had learned to be quiet, to keep his feelings in a box. He didn't like surprises. But these donkeys were not a surprise. They were a message. He looked at the packs again. He didn't touch them. He didn't want to break whatever trust the donkeys had in him. Instead, he waited, listening to the storm outside and the soft noises of the animals settling in. Hours passed. The storm didn't ease. It only got worse. The wind slammed against the walls. The snow piled up against the door like it wanted to push its way in. Caleb finally sat down, exhausted, and stared at the packs. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Not from outside. From somewhere else. He had been a cowboy for most of his life. He had seen things that would make other people flinch. But he had never seen anything like this. 3 donkeys showing up in a storm, carrying sealed packs, as if they had a job to do. He stood up and went to the smallest pack. It was tied tight, with rope that looked like it had been used for years. Caleb slowly loosened the knot. His hand shook slightly. Inside was a bundle wrapped in cloth. He pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a child's blanket. It looked old, threadbare at the edges. It smelled faintly of lavender and dust. Caleb's throat tightened. He didn't know why. He didn't know who it belonged to. But he knew this wasn't just a pack. It was something precious. He looked at the other donkeys. One of them stared at him, its eyes steady and calm, like it was waiting for him to understand. Caleb felt something in his chest shift. A memory he didn't know he still had. He remembered a night like this years ago, when his son was small. A night when the storm had trapped them in their little house. His son had cried because he was scared. Caleb had tried to be brave for him, even though he was terrified too. He remembered holding his son's blanket and telling him everything would be okay. And then he remembered the day his son left. Not because he wanted to, because Caleb had pushed him away. Caleb had been stubborn, angry, and full of pride. He had wanted to keep the ranch, keep the life he knew. He had told his son he didn't need him, that he could handle everything on his own. His son had packed a bag and walked away in the morning light. He never looked back. Caleb had never forgiven himself for that. Now, sitting in his living room with 3 donkeys and a child's blanket, Caleb felt like the past had walked right through his door. He looked at the second pack. It was heavier. He hesitated, then untied it. Inside was a small, old wooden toy. A little horse, carved by hand. It had been painted once, but the paint had worn away over time. It was the kind of toy a father would give his son. Caleb's hands went numb. He didn't know how to explain it. He didn't know who had left these things. He didn't know why the donkeys had come to him. But he knew one thing clearly. Someone had been thinking about him. Caleb sat down on the floor, the blanket and toy in his hands. He listened to the donkey's breathing, soft and steady. He listened to the storm outside, angry and relentless. He felt his eyes burn. He didn't cry often. Not since his wife left. Not since his son left. He had built a life around not showing weakness. But the weight of the moment was too much. It pressed on him like the snow against the door. He looked at the third pack. This one was different. It wasn't wrapped in cloth. It was tied in a way that suggested urgency, like someone had done it quickly and didn't have time to be neat. The rope was rough, and the pack itself was heavy. Caleb took a deep breath and opened it. Inside was a letter. It was folded carefully, like the person who wrote it had done it 1,000 times. The paper was slightly crumpled, as if it had been carried through harsh weather. Caleb's fingers shook as he unfolded it. The writing was neat, but the words were raw. Caleb, I don't know if you will ever read this, but I need you to know the truth. I didn't leave because I hated you. I left because I thought you didn't want me. I thought you were better off without me. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm coming back. Please don't make me wait. There was no name at the bottom. Caleb read it again, slowly, as if the words would change if he stared hard enough. He sat there in silence. The donkeys watched him, their eyes gentle. The storm raged outside. The room felt too small for the weight of what he had just read. Caleb thought about all the years he had spent convincing himself he was fine. He thought about all the nights he had slept alone, pretending he didn't care. He thought about the stubbornness that had kept him from reaching out. He thought about how the donkeys had arrived, as if they had been sent. He thought about the blanket, the toy, the letter. He thought about his son. Caleb stood up and walked to the window. He looked out into the white world. The snow was still falling. The wind still howled. The ranch looked like it had been swallowed. He felt a strange calm wash over him. He didn't know who had sent the donkeys. He didn't know who had written the letter. He didn't know if his son was still out there, or if he was coming back at all. But he knew this. Something had shifted. For the first time in years, Caleb felt the urge to do something that scared him. He reached for the phone. His hands trembled as he dialed a number he hadn't called in a long time. The line rang and rang and rang. Then, finally, someone answered. Caleb didn't say anything at first. He just listened to the sound of a voice on the other end of the line. A voice that sounded older. A voice that sounded tired. "Hello?" the voice said. Caleb swallowed hard. "I'm here," he said. His voice was quiet, but it was real. There was a pause on the other end. Then the voice whispered, "I'm sorry." Caleb closed his eyes. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if forgiveness would come easily. He didn't know if the past could be fixed. But in that moment, standing in his warm house, with 3 donkeys sleeping at his feet, Caleb felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the loud kind. Not the dramatic kind. Just a small, quiet feeling. Like a door opening in a storm. And for the first time, Caleb understood why the donkeys had come. Not to deliver a miracle. Just to bring him back to the life he had been too proud to live.